Great, thanks. So there's a lot of sophisticated things going on out there. It's tremendous to be part of this group to hear what is going on. Um, the project that I'll say a few words about is a small project that I did with some colleagues in Scotland and in Paris. We were particularly concerned with how to get from the source language of the law to some machine executable representation. And this is particularly true given the complexity and the applicability of the formal rule languages that we have for legislation and regulation. And I think we've seen a lot of examples. These are, very powerful languages that can represent an awful lot. But if you want to put these tools in the hands of, you know, uh, legislators, legal counsel, lawyers, it's going to require them to learn a whole lot about how to program essentially and how to use these formal languages. So we wanted to figure out a methodology essentially to get around this problem of how do you get from the source language to something close approximating machine executable um, without going all the way. So we developed this incremental coarse-grained approach to answer particular questions, and the coarse-grained approach can be further refined when you want to do more analysis. And the approach that we had was to basically have a lightweight annotation or ontology for the legislation, marking high-level concepts like obligations and violations, reparations and exceptions and things like that. This language, this ontology that we've got, can then also correlate with what we see in legal rule ML, which is a markup language, an XML markup language for legal rules. So we can then start to take this into more refined, more highly developed kinds of rule languages that you can do inference on. And the thing that we were particularly interested in is how do we enable automated online answering of questions about legal rules? Because if we asked the legal counsels what questions do they want to answer with respect to this machine readable representation, there are questions like what Scottish ministers have what powers, or what are the powers of Scottish ministers, right? Or another question would be, what obligations does a store owner have when they are selling tobacco products, right? So we want to be able to answer these kinds of questions. And we also would like to be able to facilitate the relationship, identifying the relationships between rules across some kind of corpus. So we did this little experiment, and we looked at a small corpus of legal rules that's about smoking laws in Scotland, containing conditionals and modals and things like that. And I'll just, on the screenshot there, I'll switch to that. If I can just move this thing over. I want to search here. So we've got an online tool. You want to search for Scottish ministers. And we want a statement that's, let's say, a prescriptive statement. So that's going to be some kind of obligation, for example. Here we'll look for permissions, right? So these are we're looking for a string within some statement that has been indicated to be a prescriptive statement that's a permission. And you search for that. And then you get back all of these statements that are essentially the powers that Scottish ministers have within this corpus of documents that we annotated. So this is, human readable, but you can see that we've also got, XML representations of all these documents and a lot of other parts that are, really behind the screen. And you can, search for any of these kinds of components that we've got here highlighted, as well as relationships between pieces of text. So that allows us to answer the question that we started out with, that was the kind of thing that legal counsels wanted to know. What powers the Scottish ministers have? We think that this contributes to helping lawmakers because they can, for instance, look for different formulations of the same legal concept. So there may be something about obligations or exceptions in these documents, and yet the formulation of them, the words that they've used, is very different. And for the legal drafters, this was actually very interesting and important to be able to search across a large corpus of documents and find out where those differences and similarities arose. This led to some exploration of the variation in expression, investigations for why it's happening, and also some suggestions for greater homogenization. And this is the kind of work that the legal drafters said that they wanted to be able to do. And it also allows us, as I just pointed out, to facilitate search across the corpus, gather rules from different documents, and find out where they're linked in terminological ways. So for the future, what we'd like to do is we would like to work more on this workflow, refine the process, have some discussion about what's the optimal level of analysis. Is it too coarse or too fine? Are there missing bits of information that we want to have? And also, how would this analysis work across jurisdictions? Here we just work with Scotland, but what would it look like if we could go to Singapore and New Zealand and other jurisdictions and be able to link and interrelate the various laws across those domains? So that's me. Thank you very much.